Bethlem Royal Hospital was originally built in 1247 in London under the reign of King Henry III. It was originally founded as an almshouse to raise money for the Crusades to link England to the Holy Land. The site is now covered by Liverpool Street Station and spanned 2 acres with just 1 storey. There was a courtyard with a chapel, 12 cells, a kitchen, staff accommodation and a yard for exercising. But by 1330 it was called a hospital, and by 1337 it was primarily used to treat those who were considered insane. This made it Europe's first insane asylum. In 1346, the City of London agreed to take over ownership. It was recorded in 1406 that there were 6 male inmates who were menti capti, which is Latin for insanity. There were 11 chains, 6 locks, 4 pairs of manacles and 2 pairs of stocks in the building, but it wasn't clear if these were for use on patients. Patients were admitted for a wide range of reasons, from acute melancholy all the way to homicide. The treatments in the asylum were questionable. One was rotating therapy. This involved spinning the patient in a chair hanging from the ceiling up to 100 times per minute. It was thought that using this to induce vomiting would cure most ailments that patients suffered with. Bethlem Hospital then became known as Bedlam, a Jacobean word used to describe a state of madness and chaos. By 1632, the hospital now had 2 storeys and 29 rooms after being rebuilt. In 1728, a James Monroe became the chief physician, and his family would continue to run the hospital for 125 years. Their treatments were arguably even worse than prior years. Patients were starved, beaten, and dunked in ice baths. They were fed 2 plain meals a day, under the impression that rationing full diets would restore balance to the body and restrain their spirits. The hospital then opened its doors to the public, hoping for family of the patients to visit. But instead, this open door encouraged the rich to view the patients as an object of entertainment. This then led to visitors being charged 10 shillings a visit in order to raise funds for the hospital, as though it was some kind of museum. Visitors would see patients chained to walls, being held in ring cages and dunked into icy water. They were also subject to beatings and isolation, as well as regular bloodletting and starvation periods. The hospital had as many as 96,000 visitors per year, with peak visiting times revolving around annual holidays such as Christmas. Inmates were valued only for their entertainment and were often only considered useful when their corpses could be examined. Those who were not studied were thrown into mass graves. In 2013, construction workers found a mass grave of around 20,000 people, the oldest of which dated back to the 1500s. The hospital was moved near to Lambeth Road in 1815 and had 2 wings with 3 storeys on either side. Women were kept in the west and men in the east, along with a separate wing entirely for criminal patients. 122 patients arrived by the August, and the criminal wing was extended to house 30 more people, while the east and west wings were extended to accommodate 166 more people. In total, the hospital could hold 364 patients. From 1815 to 1816, the British House of Commons Select Committee on Madhouses examined the conditions of asylums and cracked down on those who were guilty of malpractice. Current physician Thomas Monroe was then forced to step down. William Hood took over in the mid-1800s, and he decided there needed to be a shake-up in how the hospital was run. He wanted to create proper rehabilitation programs to help the patients, instead of the hospital helping those who were running the asylum. He also wanted to separate those who were in need of actual help and those who were just criminals. The hospital was moved into a more rural location during World War II, which was intended to improve the life of the patients who resided there. This was when the hospital began to photograph its inmates upon their arrival, with notes about their diagnosis and whether they were cured. Once the war was over, the hospital was absorbed into the NHS. In 1999, Bethlem became part of the South London and Maudsley NHS Foundation Trust, along with Maudsley Hospital, in a merger of the mental health services of Lambeth and Lewisham. In 2003, a £33.5 million 89-bed facility named River House opened, and this was the first major development to the hospital since the 1930s. In 2010, 23-year-old Olaseni Lewis died at the hospital. Police subjected him to a long period of restraint which was known to be dangerous. At the coroner's inquest, the jury found failures in both the police and medical staff at the hospital, stating the excessive use of force was unnecessary and contributed to his death. The Metropolitan Police held their own inquest, where they did not find the officers guilty, but it was criticised by Lewis's family due to it being a private inquiry. In 2014, 15-year-old Chris Brennan died of asphyxiation after repeated self-harming. There was a lack of a care plan provided for and no proper risk assessment. The hospital said this was due to low staffing and morale. Following his death, the adolescence unit was improved and an assessment was made in 2016 where it was found to be good. In November 2017, the House of Commons passed a bill where hospitals would have to give more detailed information on how and when restraints are used. This was called Senny's Law. Today, the hospital features a national psychosis unit as well as an occupational therapy unit, which has an art gallery displaying the work of previous patients.